I built my wife's dream house for 10 years. The day we moved in, she served me divorce papers. She lost the house and the kids instead. Hello Reddit I plus here. I was 38 years old when we finally moved into the house I had spent a decade building. 10 years of sweat, late nights and calloused hands, all poured into bricks, beams, and boards because my wife swore this was her dream home. The smell of fresh paint still clung to the walls that Friday afternoon. Sawdust traced lines across the floorboards, and the kitchen counters gleamed like something out of a magazine. My two kids, ages 8 and 11, had been racing through the hallways, their laughter bouncing off the bare walls. It should have been the happiest day of my life. Instead, it became the beginning of the cruelest betrayal I'd ever known. Her name was Renee, my wife of nearly 13 years. At 36, she was elegant, calculated, and the kind of woman who could turn every head in a room. But I had learned the hard way that attention was never enough for her. It had to be constant worship. That day, she slid her hand along the kitchen island I had built myself, tracing the polished oak I had sanded down one weekend until my fingers bled. "It's perfect," she said, her lips curving into a smile. My chest swelled. "It is. We did it." But her smile cooled into something unfamiliar. Her eyes, usually soft, turned flat. She shook her head slowly. "You did it," she said, and then she handed me a manila envelope. I laughed at first. "What's this?" Her face didn't change. "Divorce papers." The laughter died in my throat. "You're joking, right?" Her expression stayed carved from stone. "I'm not." It felt like the ground had been ripped from under me. This house, every beam and tile, was built for her. Built because she insisted. Built because I believed in the life we were supposed to have together. "You waited until the day we moved in?" I asked, voice cracking. "I wanted the kids to feel stable before I left," she said, arms folded. Her tone was rehearsed, cold, like she'd practiced it in the mirror a dozen times. I blinked at her, numb. "What about the kids? What about us? They'll live with me, obviously. This is their home." And then I saw it. The faintest twitch of a smirk, a new phone in her hand, perfume I didn't recognize. Suddenly, the puzzle clicked together. There was someone else. That night, after Renee took the kids to her sister's for the weekend, I sat in the half-furnished living room, staring at the divorce papers. Her coffee mug still sat on the counter, lipstick smudged on the rim. My entire life was unraveling in silence. My phone buzzed. It was my dad. "You sound like hell, Aaron," he said. "What happened?" I told him everything. The house, the papers, Renee's icy smile. He didn't interrupt once. When I finally fell silent, he cleared his throat. "Bring me the paperwork tomorrow morning." My father, Gerald, had been a family lawyer for 40 years before retiring. He was 70 now, sharp as ever. And I knew one thing about him. He didn't like to lose. When I handed him the envelope the next day, he flipped through each page slowly, his eyes narrowing. Then he read it again, faster. "This is clean work," he muttered. "Drafted by someone who knows exactly what they're doing. I'd bet my last dollar it's her new boyfriend." I froze. "How do you—" He gave a dry smile. "I've seen this 100 times. A woman falls for her lawyer, the lawyer smells blood in the water, and suddenly, divorce papers appear. Let's play their game." For the next week, I pretended to be defeated. Renee came around daily, sometimes with her friend, a polished man in his 40s named Grant, always in a sleek suit, always calling me buddy with that smug smile. "Once this is finalized," he said casually, "you can find yourself a smaller place. The kids need to stay here with their mom." Renee would stand beside him, arms crossed, as if she had already won. I nodded, keeping my voice low. "Of course." But every time they left, I went straight to my father. 2 nights we spent in his study, surrounded by towers of legal books, coffee mugs, and yellowing case files. That's when I remembered something. 10 years ago, before Renee and I even got married, I had bought the land this house stood on, paid for in cash, under my name alone. Renee had never been on the deed. She was too busy picking out curtains to notice. When I told my dad, his eyes lit up. "Son, that's the nail in the coffin." We built our case like a fortress. Title deeds, payment receipts, emails showing every decision she'd made but never signed for. Every nail and beam came from my labor, my money, my name. She had no legal claim. The day of the mediation came. Renee waltzed in with Grant, dressed like they were attending a gala, confident smirks plastered on their faces. I sat quietly beside my father. Grant leaned back in his chair, tapping his pen. "Let's make this simple. Renee gets the house, primary custody, and you'll provide spousal support. You can keep your tools or something." Renee actually laughed. My dad didn't flinch. He slowly slid a folder across the table. "That's interesting. considering my son bought the land before your client even met him. Here are the deeds. The house is legally his alone. And as for custody, he pulled out another stack of papers. Here's the record of her late-night absences, the credit card bills tied to hotel stays, the children left with babysitters while she entertained her friend. Grant's smile faltered. Renee's face went pale. My father leaned forward, voice calm but sharp as a knife. If you want to go to court, we can. But I'll warn you, the judge will see a mother abandoning her children while living off her lover's paycheck. My son is the only stable parent here. The silence in that room was thick. Grant shifted uncomfortably. Renee's hands trembled. By the end of the meeting, the tables had turned. Renee walked away with nothing but her clothes and whatever she could fit into her car. The house? Mine. Custody? Mine. Support? Not a chance. When I brought the kids home, their laughter filled the hallways again. For the first time in months, I felt the house breathe. Not as Renee's dream home, but as ours. As I tucked my son into bed that night, he whispered, "Dad, I'm glad we're here with you." I kissed his forehead and smiled. "Me too, buddy. Me too." And for the first time, I realized I hadn't just built Renee's dream house. I'd built a fortress for my kids and me, one she would never set foot in again. For weeks after the mediation, the house felt strangely quiet. No footsteps clicking across the kitchen tile, no perfume lingering in the hallway, no sharp voice criticizing the smallest of things. At first, the silence was unsettling. I caught myself expecting Renee to appear at the doorway, arms crossed, ready to point out something I hadn't done right, but she never came. Instead, the house slowly filled with something I hadn't realized we'd been missing: peace. My daughter, Leah, started leaving her drawings on the fridge without fear they'd be tossed out for cluttering the kitchen. My son, Evan, filled the backyard with soccer balls, mud tracks, and laughter that didn't get shushed. Meals weren't tense anymore. Dinner became our favorite time of day. Spaghetti nights where sauce spilled across the counter and nobody cared. It wasn't easy. Some nights, I stayed up late at the kitchen island, running numbers, wondering if I'd be able to keep up with everything. Renee had always loved to spend, and I'd let her. Now it was just me, a mortgage-free house, 2 growing kids, and bills that stacked up faster than I liked. But then my father reminded me of something. "Son, the house is more than walls and a roof. It's proof of what you're capable of. Don't forget that." So I adjusted. Took on extra contracts in my construction business. Hired one of my old buddies to help with the workload. Within months, the business grew. Word spread that I was the guy who built a dream house from the ground up. Calls came in from everywhere. What nearly broke me turned into the very thing that saved us. And that's when Renee came crawling back. It was a Sunday afternoon, nearly 6 months after she left. The kids and I had just finished making pancakes when the doorbell rang. Evan ran to open it, but froze when he saw her. Renee stood there, her hair a little messy, makeup worn. She wasn't glowing the way she had the last time I saw her with Grant. Her smile was thin, strained. "Hi," she said softly. "Can I come in?" Leah clung to my side, silent. Evan stared at the floor. I stepped into the doorway. "What do you want, Renee?" She swallowed hard. "Things didn't work out with Grant, and I've been thinking maybe we could talk. About us. About the kids." I let out a bitter laugh. "Now you want to talk? After you tried to strip everything from me? After you left them?" Her eyes welled up. "I made mistakes, Aaron. I wasn't myself." I cut her off. "You don't get to come back here because your plan fell apart. This house, this family, these are mine now. You chose differently." Leah spoke up then, her small voice trembling. "We don't need her, Dad." Renee's face crumbled. She tried to reach out, but Evan stepped behind me, hiding. "You should go," I said firmly. She stood there another moment, eyes darting between me and the kids, and then she turned and walked back to her car. That was the last time she tried to see us without going through the court system. But my father had seen to it that her visitation rights were limited and supervised. She faded from our lives like a shadow at sunset. Years passed. The house aged with us, but it never lost its warmth. Leah grew into an artist, Evan into a young man with a love for engineering. Every milestone, birthdays, graduations, late-night talks in the living room, was built inside those walls. Sometimes I'd catch myself standing in the yard, staring up at the house I once thought was Renee's dream, and I'd smile, because it wasn't hers anymore. It never really was. It was ours. Mine and my kids. A fortress born out of betrayal, but transformed into a home filled with love, laughter, and second chances. And every time I heard their laughter echoing through the halls, I knew one thing with absolute certainty. Renee lost everything that day, but I gained the life we were always meant to have.